Good morning, team. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. I'm Dr. Lindsay Huey, lead faculty for extremity management, along with Dr. Mark Gallant and Dr. Eric Chaconis. So pumped to be with you here on a Clinical Tuesday. Today, we are going to do a cursory crash course in tendinopathy management as it relates to irritability. So before we dive deep into that, I would love to share with you what's coming up in our ice world. So lots of live courses happening in October, and then November is really stacked. So Professional Bike Fit is coming up October 23rd. Modern Management of the Older Adult is November 6th. I will be in North Carolina with Elite Ortho November 6th as well, and then Total Spine Thrust is running a course. Clinical Management of the Fitness Athlete will be running a course the following weekend, November 13th, and then Total Spine Thrust again, and that will be with me as well in Newark, Delaware. So come to Delaware, the first state that everyone forgets about, because Justin Dunaway will be here with me, and it'll be a blast. There's also Rehabilitation of the Injured Runner, November 13th. So there's just a host of things coming up. Please check it out on ptonice.com. And then we also have some online courses starting as well. So please check it out. So tendinopathy, crash course management. What do I mean by that? So first, let's just dive deep in a review of what I'm talking about when we're thinking tendinopathy management. And I want you to think as this relates to the upper quarter or the lower quarter. But someone with tendinopathy, they're going to come in and they're going to have pinpoint tenderness. So if we're thinking like rotator cuff tendinopathy, they're literally going to point to that greater tuberosity and say, ow, it hurts right here. Or if it's patellar tendinopathy, they're going to really literally point to that patellar tendon. And they're going to have complaints of worsening pain with activities that are important to them, especially that involve load. And so often it is like for lower quarter, running, jumping, upper quarter, if it's rotator cuff, it's that ability to lift their arm, and you can just think of someone on your clinical caseload and kind of that proportional load that bothers them in activity. They're often going to complain of morning pain or pain that comes on after activities of inactivity. So like sitting at work for a prolonged period at a desk, patellar tendinopathy is going to kind of be angry initially, but then once it starts moving and warming up, the tendon starts to feel better. Usually in your objective exam, you'll find local tenderness at that tendon, that musculotendinous junction, tenderness in the muscle, and then pain with muscle activation and often associated weakness. But there's going to be load proportional ags and eases. That's going to be that key. And we're often seeing these humans, unfortunately not in their acute stage, so we're seeing them 3 months or beyond. So we really are never seeing a true tendinitis. A tendinopathy is a load issue. Let me repeat that again, a load issue. So a load issue needs to be treated with proper loading, but this requires a really great understanding and respect for irritability. So I hope to illuminate for you this morning, and why it's called Crash Course is, 15 minutes or less. I want to kind of give you the buoys of how you manage irritability for someone with tendinopathy and think about how this relates to upper and lower quarter. So before I dive into high versus moderate versus low irritability management, I want to just let you know that when we're trying to manage these humans, we have to know the 24-hour response rule, which is that human, we're really monitoring their response to our load over the next 24 hours. So not only are we noting their current pain on their NPR scale, but we want to really have them track and dial in how they're feeling that next 24 hours. That's the only way we'll be effective in dosing them. And so we often refer to the Goldilocks rule of being that sweet spot NPRS scale that we want for these humans, because the conundrum with treating tendinopathy is people are coming to us in pain. Load causes pain, but they actually need that discomfort and pain on board to remodel and rehab the tendon. And so it's this conundrum where you have to have this really frank conversation with the patient that we are going to cause some discomfort initially as we train, and letting them know what's normal and what's not. And so if we think of a red light, yellow light, green light, red light would be someone with greater than 6 out of 10 pain, and then pain lingers for more than 24 hours, and or they have a decrease in function or range. This is a sign of overdosing. Yellow light is a human that is experiencing like 4 out of 10 pain at the area of symptoms, but their pain doesn't last longer than 24 hours. So this is kind of that sweet spot that we want patients to be. Anything below that, so about 3 or 10 or below, and pain that's only at that level and associated with the activity you're currently doing, but there are no lingering symptoms. So that green is actually, while it's a green light to keep loading, it's kind of a sign of underdosing. So unless you're choosing to underdose someone purposely, we actually want more than 3 out of 10 symptoms on board when we're thinking about that NPRS. So I want you to just consider that general rule or guide when we're thinking about tendinopathy. And now I want to unpack with that consideration, how will our person with high irritability versus moderate irritability versus low irritability, what would they look like in the clinic? And then how do we manage each one of those buckets, no matter what condition it is, no matter if it's upper quarter or lower quarter. So for someone with high irritability, with tendinopathy, you're going to see these high pain levels that are above a 6 out of 10 that linger for very long periods. So when we think about that irritability mountain, it is a steep front side, meaning it doesn't take much to aggravate the tendon. Once it gets spiked up, symptoms just stay for a really long time. And there's this long ramp down on the back side of that mountain. And they're definitely having symptoms more than 24 hours. When we're thinking about a human with moderate irritability, tendinopathy, they're somewhere between that 3 to a 6 on the NPRS. And they'll have bouts of lingering symptoms that may or may not be past that 24 hours. They might have some disturbed sleep. One thing I forgot to mention with high irritability, people are starting to get disturbed sleep. And that is, so don't forget about that in the high irritability. I forgot to mention that. In moderate irritability, they're having some pain with ADLs. Their irritability mountain has a more steady climb up. It's not as steep, meaning they can do a little bit more activity before it starts bugging them, but it still takes some time to come back down. So they're somewhere in the middle. And then when we think about low irritability, it's that human that comes to you and they have 3 out of 10 or less pain, but they do have pain with activities that are important to them, some higher level activities like running, jumping. And their symptoms, when they describe them to you, they don't tend to linger more than 24 hours. And so they have this really long ramp up on the front side of the mountain to cause symptoms, and then they quickly settle, so a steep backside. And so consider these irritability presentations, and now I want to tell you kind of how we'll match them to treatment. So those with high irritability, they really need a modulation of their ecosystem. They are in high pain levels, everything hurts. This isn't the person that you can full send that load. They need isometrics. They need dry needling. They need soft tissue techniques, things that are going to help their ecosystem calm. And the isometric dosage sweet spot is 45 seconds, 5 reps. And then they need to do this 2 or 3 sets and working to an intensity of 70% of their 1 rep max. The purpose of the isometric is it's hypoalgesic. It causes some great cortical stimulation and helps develop that nervous that nerve to muscle stimulation with that long hold. We've found up to immediate effects of analgesia up to 45 minutes of pain relief when you do isometrics with these humans. But the important part is that dose of 45 seconds times 5. And then they need a 2-minute rest for recovery in between. And some of you are thinking, Lindsay, you're crazy. I'm not doing a 45-second hold squat with my patients, and I can't even do that, right? Think about total tension under time. So it's about 225 seconds, about 4-ish minutes, 4 minutes and 25 seconds. So make that human accumulate that if they can't do all 45 seconds at once. But I'd encourage you to build to that as soon as possible. And that key being, they should feel fatigued, but it shouldn't spike up their pain. It shouldn't spike up their pain past 6 out of 10. So keep that in mind. When with high irritability, you also want to be mindful of avoiding high areas of compression. So that's just a general good rule in that high irritability stage. As your human moves out of that high irritability, starts getting into moderate irritability, we want to start initiating heavy, slow training. So we need that challenge on board. So that's going to look like concentrics or eccentrics. And we want to do that at a dose of 3 sets of 10 with a 3-minute rest. And we want to work on, with a 90-second rest. And we want our humans working on this 3 days a week at 70% 1 rep max. For those that are less familiar or their patients don't know the 1 rep max, think about that as like a 7 out of 10 on the RPE. They'll benefit most from doing some external pacing, so using a metronome. These humans will also benefit from some ecosystem modulation, like using dry needling or soft tissue massage, but they really need to start getting to that load and start working to that point where you're about a 3 to a 5 out of 10 on an NPRS. And then you're going to gradually start working to higher intensity as that human moves to a low irritability, right? As you're doing your job and checking in with them, they're going to move from that high irritability to moderate irritability to low irritability. And so once they get to low irritability, here's where you want to work on our heavy slow. So we're doing concentric or eccentric, but we're really going after strength at 85% of your 1 rep max. So we're doing a 5x5, 3 to 4 days a week with a 3-minute rest. So this is at a stage where we really want to push those limits of strength, but still following the Goldilocks rule. So we'll have patients monitor response in session and then that next 24-hour period. The other thing, once we're in this low irritability stage, there's not a lot of manuals or ecosystem modulation that's as required. We can really go after training, not just strength, but starting to work on unilateral loading and energy storage and release as they come out of this. And this kind of whole spectrum of loading based on irritability that I'm sharing with you is a mix of clinical practice, the research, and a great article that comes from Peter Malliaris out of JOSPT in 2015. And he did this really nice walkthrough about clinical diagnosis and load management specifically to patellar tendinopathy. And I'd really encourage you to take a look. And for those that want it, I can post it as well. But it kind of guides based on irritability that we will respect irritability, but we will provide load all along the way. And so you will do well by these patients if you respect their irritability, but still challenge them. And I know I threw a lot of numbers at you, and so I'm going to summarize them again. And I will tell you that extremity management, we really dive deep not only into the tendinopathy literature, the pathophys and dosage, but we dive deep about all dosage and what that looks like, not just our recommended load management, but frequency, intensity, time, type, and how that relates to irritability. But I'm going to summarize right now. When we're thinking about treating humans with tendinopathy, when they have high irritability on board, we're going to start with isometrics. And we're going to do that at 70% 1 rep max intensity. They're going to do this for 45 seconds times 5 reps. 2 to 3 times a day with a 2-minute rest. And this is something, the isometrics, that actually can be done daily to modulate symptoms and pain. When we have someone with a moderate irritability presentation, we're going to go after heavy slow, but we're going to go after more of a hypertrophy range, which is 3 sets of 10, 70% of your 1 rep max with a 90-second rest. And that's going to be 3 times a week. When a human comes to us with low irritability, we want to go after strength right away. And that's going to look like 5 sets of 5 at an 85% your 1 rep max with a 3-minute rest 3 times a week. And then starting to move to energy storage and release, like power movements, jumping, hopping, sprinting, and that you'll do 1 to 2 times a week. Usually at like a 3 sets of 10 range of motions, or excuse me, rep scheme, range of motion, what the heck? I need more of this coffee. And then a 3-minute rest. But those rest periods are important, and that frequency per week is important. If you meet that human, meet them at their irritability, talk to them about that 24-hour response, you will move them along that spectrum quickly. That person that comes to you with low irritability, please don't treat them like they have high irritability. Please don't do isometrics. Go right after that strength. Go right after that energy storage and release. And please come to an extremity management course where we dive deep of all things tendinopathy and dosage. I thank you for your time this morning. I'm going to go finish up my coffee, and I hope that you all do as well. And have a beautiful Tuesday. Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.